Mr. Secretary General of the United Nations, Majesties, Excellencies, heads of delegations. In taking the floor before this august assembly, on behalf of His Excellency Obiang Basogo, the President of the Republic of Equatorial Guinea, I would like to congratulate firstly His Excellency Mr. Peter Thompson on his election to lead the 71st session of this General Assembly. I wish him every success in carrying out his functions. My congratulations also for His Excellency Mr. Mogans Likatov, the outgoing President, for all of the innovations he introduced to this Assembly and for his work in general. In particular, I would like to congratulate His Excellency Mr. Ban Ki-moon, who is attending this General Assembly for the last time as Secretary General. Mr. Ban Ki-moon, thank you for your contribution to conflict resolution in the world, and thank you for your 10 years of service to mankind. I wish you success in your future responsibilities. Mr. President, the world witnesses today a constant and overwhelming wave of immigrants fleeing areas of conflict, particularly Iraq and Syria, and from Africa to Europe, trying to find a safe place to live. Terrorism continues to cause innocent victims in all regions, and this is a true threat to the well-being and development of human beings. Political instability endangers the lives of many millions of thousands of human beings in many countries. The economic crisis turns increasingly worse and unpredictable, with all of its negative consequences for the growth and the social and economic development of our countries. This affects particularly developing countries. There are still communities which suffer from hunger, malnutrition, and extreme poverty. In a world as complex as the one we are seeing today, the role of the United Nations is increasingly essential and more valuable than ever. That is why, united, we must ensure a real democracy within our organization. United, we must protect our planet for the good of our offspring. United, we must respect and help one another. United, we must prioritize human values, not only in terms of respect for human rights, but also in terms of respect for the rights of mankind. Thus, we will be able to strengthen our United Nations and ensure a better future for future generations. We, the political leaders, run the risk of being collectively and historically condemned if ambition and arrogance continue leading us to the self-destruction of the human species, to the contamination of our planet, and to the destruction of the foundations of peaceful coexistence to which future generations are entitled. Mr. President, by the year 2030, the countries members of the United Nations should have transformed the lives of all and conserved our planet. This is the goal and the commitment that the leaders of our organization undertook at the General Assembly in September 2015, when they adopted the 17 Sustainable Development Goals and the 169 targets. Indeed, it is an urgent need to work toward these goals, which are necessary and essential, each and every one, for the development of a decent life for every human person. The Common African Position post-2015 has been very useful for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. It identifies substantive issues of importance for Africa, which are reflected in a consensus on the priorities, concerns, and strategies of Africa to be reflected in the outcome of the process of negotiation of Agenda 2030. With regard to the progress made in the Republic of Equatorial Guinea, I am pleased to inform this Assembly that, in keeping with its ambition to become an emergent country by 2020, the government of Equatorial Guinea has fully mainstreamed the Sustainable Development Goals into its development program entitled Program Horizon 2020. With this program, the government prioritizes its economic and social transformation by developing human capital and having inclusive and sustainable growth. In recent years, important progress has been made in all sectors. In the health sector, the World Health Organization has termed Equatorial Guinea as one of the few countries in the region which has been able to considerably reduce the risks of infant mortality during pregnancies and delivery, thanks to the practice of preventive medicine and free vaccinations. Children, pregnant women, and the elderly receive free health services and have equal access to drugs. At the economic level, Equatorial Guinea focuses on diversifying its productive sector, creating jobs for youth in areas such as industrial fisheries, agriculture, and hydrocarbon development, all of this in order to improve the quality of life of the population. Through the program of Water, Electricity, and Health for All, our citizens in all corners of our country have access to drinking water, electricity, and health services. At the international level, I'd like to highlight that Equatorial Guinea made a donation to FAO to fight hunger. It donated to WHO to counter the Ebola pandemics and to improve the health of its victims. As you can see, Excellencies, the government of Equatorial Guinea, even when much remains to be done, has made great strides toward the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, Agenda 2030, in part based on the good use of resources from the hydrocarbon sector, which is the main source of income for our economy. Mr. President, together with the implementation of the development objectives, we note that many citizens in our organization continue living in insecurity, threat, and fear. The refugee crisis requires a new approach. We value and we commend the decision adopted by the governments of several Western countries, African countries, and others to receive and help the refugees start a new life. As you may recall, on the 3rd of September 2015, images of young Aylan Kurdi, only 3 years old, who drowned in the sands of a Turkish beach, and we pray to God that He keep him, moved us all and appealed to our deepest humanitarian sentiments. A young Syrian immigrant, 13 years old, also appealed to us before the microphones of the international press when he said, "Please help Syrians. We do not want to stay in Europe. Stop the war in Syria, and you will not see us here." End of quotation. Excellencies, we believe that the proposal of this young Syrian should guide our efforts given the migrant crisis we are witnessing today. We recognize that the policy of partnering with one of the belligerent parties and supplying them with weapons is a policy which only leads to death, suffering, desolation, and the attendant migrant and refugee crisis. This policy has caused so much suffering in so many countries which yesterday were stable, peaceful, and models of coexistence, but which today are living through the worst tragedy in their history. Let us therefore set off again on the path to dialogue, of saying no to arms supplies, stop the proliferation of nuclear weapons, stop conflicts by other means, and let's use means which prioritize a culture of peace and not that of violent confrontation. The suffering of some peoples is of concern to all of us. When one nation is at war, we are all at war, and we have no peace. As President Kennedy stated, the peace of concern to us and the peace for which we must fight should not only be the peace of our countries and at our times, but peace in all countries and at all times, because our common bond lies in that we all fight for the future of our children. We all breathe the same air. We all live on this small planet, and we are all mortal. Excellencies, I am the delegate of a country which aspires to have a seat in the United Nations Security Council in 2 years. Ever since our accession to national independence on the 12th of October 1968, almost 48 years ago, the Republic of Equatorial Guinea has not yet had the privilege of being a member of the Security Council. Duly endorsed by the Summit of Heads of State of the African Union held in Johannesburg in July 2015, our country, for the first time, is a candidate to a non-permanent member seat at the Security Council for the period 2018 to 2019. These elections will take place in June next year, 2017. From this rostrum, the government of the Republic of Equatorial Guinea requests the resolute support of all members of the United Nations for our candidacy. The government of Equatorial Guinea pledges to rise to the circumstances and to work for a more just, more humanitarian, and more peaceful world. Excellencies, with regard to the reforms which are absolutely necessary in the United Nations, we regret to note that 71 years after the establishment of the United Nations, Africa continues to lack a permanent representation at the highest levels of this organization. 71 years later, Africa continues to be denied the right to a voice, vote, and veto in the group of countries which are permanent members of the Security Council. This is not fair for a continent which has 54 member states, a population of 1.1 billion persons, and whose issues constitute the majority of the issues discussed at the Security Council. I do not wish to conclude without congratulating once again the government of the United States of America for the major step taken in restoring dialogue with the Republic of Cuba. We request the government of the people of the United States that it crowned this by lifting the embargo against the Cuban people, which would allow this country to have the necessary means to fully participate in the national and multinational implementation of the Agenda 2030 and its Sustainable Development Goals. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this is the message that was entrusted to me by His Excellency Obiang Gemlan Bosogo, who asked me to convey it to this Assembly. I wish this Assembly every success in its debates for a more peaceful, more humanitarian, and more democratic world. May God bless the Republic of Equatorial Guinea, and may God bless the United Nations. Thank you.
I thank the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of Equatorial Guinea.